In 525 BCE, the mighty Egyptian empire fell. Not to superior weapons, not to a larger army, but to cats. Yes, actual cats. This is the story of how one of history's greatest civilizations surrendered because of their pet animals. And it's completely true. To understand how ridiculous this is, you need to know how powerful Egypt was. This was the civilization that built the pyramids, that dominated the Mediterranean for 3,000 years, that had never been conquered by a foreign power. Ever. But the Egyptians had a weakness, and it was sitting in their laps, purring. Cats in ancient Egypt weren't just pets, they were divine. Every single cat was believed to carry the essence of Bastet, the goddess of home, fertility, and protection. She was one of Egypt's most powerful deities, depicted with a cat's head, and worshipped across the kingdom. And here's the critical part. Killing a cat, even by accident, was punishable by death. Not exile, not imprisonment. The Greek historian Diodorus recorded a Roman citizen who accidentally killed a cat in Egypt. He was immediately lynched by an angry mob. Egyptian officials couldn't stop them. The punishment was absolute. Wealthy Egyptians adorned their cats with gold jewelry. Families shaved their eyebrows when their cat died, and mourned until they grew back. Over 700,000 people would travel to the city of Bubastis every year for Bastet's festival, drinking and celebrating for days. Egypt even had a government department dedicated to preventing cat smuggling. They sent agents to foreign countries to bring stolen cats back home. This wasn't superstition. This was law. This was Egypt's identity. And in 525 BCE, someone was about to weaponize it. But first, Egypt needed an enemy. Enter Cambyses II of Persia, son of Cyrus the Great, ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen. By 525 BCE, Persia controlled everything from India to the Mediterranean. Everything except Egypt. And Cambyses wanted it. The excuse? A marriage gone wrong. The Egyptian pharaoh Cambyses II refused to send his daughter to marry the Persian king. Instead, he sent a decoy, the daughter of a previous pharaoh he'd overthrown. When she arrived in Persia, she exposed the deception. Cambyses was humiliated, and he vowed revenge. But there was a problem. Egypt's defenses were formidable. The city of Pelusium guarded the eastern gateway into Egypt, protected by walls, fortifications, and thousands of soldiers. Egypt had Greek mercenaries, war chariots, and elite archers. Taking Egypt by force would cost thousands of Persian lives. Cambyses needed inside information. He needed someone who knew Egypt's secrets. And then, the perfect traitor walked through his door. His name was Phanes of Halicarnassus, a Greek mercenary, one of Pharaoh Cambyses' most trusted military advisors. A man who knew every detail of Egypt's defenses, battle tactics, and cultural weaknesses. For reasons history doesn't fully explain, Phanes and Cambyses had a falling out. Bitter and vengeful, Phanes fled Egypt by ship. Cambyses sent assassins after him. They caught him in Lycia. But Phanes got his guards drunk and escaped to Persia. When he met Cambyses, he had a gift. complete knowledge of how to destroy Egypt. Phanes told the Persians about the desert crossing, and then he told them about the cats. The Egyptians, Phanes said, will not fight if you put their goddess in front of your army. Cambyses had never heard anything like it. An entire civilization that would rather surrender than harm an animal? It seemed impossible. But Phanes insisted. He'd seen it firsthand. He knew their laws, he knew their faith, and he knew exactly how to exploit it. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Pharaoh Amasis died. His young son, Psamtik III, took the throne. He'd ruled for exactly 6 months when news arrived. The Persians were coming. Psamtik was inexperienced, untested, and now his best military advisor had defected to the enemy. His Greek allies had switched sides. His fleet commander, Polycrates of Samos, joined the Persians. He was alone, but he still had Egypt's army. Thousands of soldiers, fortified positions, the impenetrable gateway city of Pelusium. He gathered his forces at the Nile Delta, behind massive walls, with catapults, siege engines, and Egypt's finest archers. He was ready for war. Then, before the battle, something horrifying happened. Psamtik's forces captured Phanes' sons, the children he'd left behind when he fled. In a grotesque act of revenge, Psamtik had them executed. He drained their blood into bowls, mixed it with wine, and forced every councilman to drink it. It was a message. This is what happens to traitors. But it was too late. The Persians were already at the gates, and they'd brought passengers. Picture this, the Egyptian army, positioned behind the walls of Pelusium, archers ready, thousands of soldiers prepared to defend their homeland. They'd held this position for generations. No one had ever breached these defenses. Then the Persian army appeared on the horizon. But something was wrong. The Persian soldiers, they weren't holding normal shields. On every shield, painted in vivid detail, was the image of Bastet, the cat goddess, Egypt's most sacred deity. And that wasn't all. In front of the Persian army, driven forward like a living shield, were hundreds of cats, dogs, ibises, every animal the Egyptians held sacred. The Persians had captured them, rounded them up, and now pushed them toward Egyptian lines. The Egyptian archers drew their bows, aimed, and then froze. They couldn't shoot. If they fired, they'd kill the sacred animals. They'd offend Bastet herself. They'd be damned to hell for eternity. Their commanders screamed orders. Their fellow soldiers begged them to fire. But their hands wouldn't move. Their faith wouldn't let them. The Persians advanced, step by step, cats meowing, animals crying. Egyptian arrows stayed in their quivers. When the Persians reached the walls, there was no resistance. The Egyptians, paralyzed by their own beliefs, surrendered their positions. Some fled. Some threw down their weapons. The battle became a slaughter. According to the historian Ctesias, 50,000 Egyptians died that day. The Persians lost only 7,000. Pelusium fell without a real fight. The gateway to Egypt was open. The survivors retreated to Memphis, the capital. But it was pointless. Psamtik tried to negotiate. The Persians sent a herald by ship to offer terms. The desperate Egyptians killed the messenger, tore his body apart, and carried the pieces back to the city. Cambyses besieged Memphis. It fell in 10 days. And that's when the real horror began. Psamtik III was captured. Cambyses paraded him through the streets. made him watch his daughter serve as a slave, made him watch his son get executed along with 2,000 other young Egyptian nobles. But Psamtik didn't break, not until he saw an old friend, a once great man, now reduced to begging. That's when he finally wept. Some Persian officers, moved by his dignity, asked Cambyses for mercy. He agreed. Psamtik would live as a governor under Persian watch. Except, Psamtik tried to start a rebellion. When Cambyses found out, he had him executed. Some accounts say Cambyses was so furious at Pharaoh Amasis' deception that he dug up his mummified body and burned it. A sacrilege to both Egyptians and Persians. Egypt became a Persian province, the 27th dynasty. For the first time in 3,000 years, Egypt was ruled by foreigners, defeated by cats. The Battle of Pelusium wasn't just a military victory, it was psychological warfare. Cambyses understood that the most powerful weapon isn't always a sword. Sometimes it's knowing your enemy better than they know themselves. Egypt would eventually drive out the Persians, but they'd never be the same. The age of foreign rule had begun. First Persia, then Alexander the Great's Greece, then Rome. All because one general understood. You can conquer an army, but you can't conquer someone's gods unless you make them choose.